Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to ZooBox. I'm Sean. Today I have a little off-the-cuff movie review for you. So, went to go see the new Ghostbusters movie, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, because that's exactly the kind of subtitle you would think that would accompany a Ghostbusters movie. But anyways, so my history with Ghostbusters, really loved the first Ghostbusters. I think like most people my age, I grew up with it. I actually kind of got reacquainted with the Ghostbusters pretty heavily. In the past few years, my son really kind of gravitated towards it. He just thought it was cool. Like when he was really young, 2.5, like 3 years old. I think we were just like hanging out watching the original Ghostbusters, which I think I have right here, yeah. Oh yeah, I got this thing right here. Watching the original Ghostbusters, and he really just took to it. Before long, we were watching the movie all the time. Specifically the first movie. That's the one that he really gravitated towards. And also the video game, Ghostbusters the video game, which for a long time was really the only Ghostbusters sequel that was out there. It was kind of considered the third Ghostbusters movie. You know, it's a pretty fun third-person action game that is, you know, full of fan service and stuff. It's exactly what you want out of a video game, and it's better than like the story-wise, it's better than you would expect something like that to be. And they got the original cast to come back and do the voices. So for a long time, that was it. And then 2016 came along, and the Paul Feig disaster, 2016 Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which apparently is the actual title of the movie. That one is like, it's not very good, but it does try to be a Ghostbusters movie. It does try to do something else with I guess, the franchise. I'm not sure why they made it like a reboot and not just like a reboot-quel. Kind of like what they ended up doing with the, you know, the subsequent sequels. But I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. So, Ghostbusters Afterlife, I thought was fine. I thought it was a weird movie. I think it's weird to take the franchise of Ghostbusters and make it like a nostalgia piece. That's like kind of solemn and whimsical. It's, you know, it's made for people my age, a little bit older, that have kids, that want to watch Ghostbusters stuff with our kids. Like, you know, we probably pushed the real Ghostbusters on our kids a little bit. In fact, Ghostbusters Afterlife has a lot of kind of aesthetic choices and almost what feels like callbacks to the real Ghostbusters, to the cartoon show. I mean, one of the main characters, the little girl, her name is just eluding me at the moment, but she looks just like, you know, the Spengler character from the cartoon. So it even goes that deep. I just thought that, but I thought it was weird. I just thought it was a weird movie to do that with Ghostbusters. And it just feels almost cynical in an odd way. And in some ways, like 2016 in spirit is trying harder to be a Ghostbusters movie, like kind of in the tradition of Ghostbusters, because you would imagine with that formula that they kind of built, like this working class comedy about guys that instead of being like exterminators or something are Ghostbusters, running around the city and solving ghost crimes. Like, I mean, that's something that could have been franchised at the wazoo. It's like, it's right there. But from the get-go, even back in the day with Ghostbusters 2, there was already lots of considerations about what they should do with it for kind of monetary reasons, right? Like, the real Ghostbusters was very popular in the wake of the Ghostbusters movie, which was obviously a huge phenomenon. So when they go to make Ghostbusters 2, they're already kind of compromising a little bit. They wanted to make it more kid-friendly, more family-friendly, more goofy in a certain way, more in line with the aesthetics of the real Ghostbusters. I mean, and they're very blatant about it in some cases. Like Janine, for instance, is like the way she looks like in Ghostbusters 2 is pulled directly from the real Ghostbusters, directly from the cartoon. So now we came to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It's not Ivan Reitman. It's Ivan Reitman's son did Afterlife. He produced this one. Somebody else directed this one, Gil Kenan, which I'm not super familiar with his work. I didn't actually look into it before I started hit record. Normally I do. I'll go check out the director and stuff, but I didn't this time. And maybe my review will explain why. I thought this was not very good. Pretty mediocre. Very kind of like oddly overstuffed, unfocused, kind of sloppy. A lot of people have been saying that if they pull it together in the third act, I couldn't disagree more. I thought the third act was a fucking mess. Like, the whole movie feels almost borderline nonsensical. Like, it doesn't even make any fucking sense at all. And nobody gets, like, enough time to be developed. Like, there is a core of something that they were trying to get at with this movie, which was kind of doubling down on the family atmosphere, the family nature of where they're taking the Ghostbusters as a franchise. And they were kind of, you know, because they're integrating Paul Rudd, you know, as becoming kind of a surrogate father. And as a family, they're the Ghostbusters. And they have like the 2 beats of that. They have like, or 3 beats of that are represented in the movie that's supposed to kind of clean that all up. But it's supposed to be kind of the major thrust of the film. And it doesn't get much attention at all because there's just too many people. There's just too many characters, new characters, old characters. I mean, there's like 4, 5 new people. Like Kumail Nanjiani's in this movie for some reason. I mean, I understand that they do something with his character. Like, he's kind of almost like a Deus Ex Machina. He's like a MacGuffin character, essentially. And they do something with him, but it's stupid. Who cares? And you don't ever learn enough about him to care about him whatsoever. Whatsoever. Like, if he were to continue to be part of the franchise or if he's a goofy character, I know nothing about him. He played a version of himself. And Kumail Nanjiani is just, like, not a great actor to begin with. But he's actually, you know, it's kind of weird. Even though he's kind of one of these childless dink people. I'm being a little facetious. Like, this movie is kind of made for people like him in some respect. Like, Arrested Development adults. Like, you know, that's another thing about the movie. As I was sitting there in the theater watching it, me and my son were watching it. And I was just like, who the fuck is this for? Like, my kid was bored. My kid's like almost 7 years old. Should be prime time for a movie like this, right? Kind of taking on this Amblin nostalgia kind of filter. Like, you would think that this would be something he would really respond to. And he didn't. He was super bored. He asked me if we could leave about an hour into the movie. And I was like, no, son, we've come too far. We've come too far. We have to finish it. And I think he maybe liked the end of it a little bit more. Because I think a lot of people are responding to the third act because, like, something happens. Things start actually happening. The villain is a complete, like, non-entity. I watched the movie last night. I already don't remember anything about him, like, at all. I don't remember their motivation other than, yeah, they're like some sort of ancient demon, supernatural force, wanting to bring upon some sort of ice age. It's like, whatever. Honestly, that stuff kind of went in one ear and out the other because they have to do this thing where they, like, basically just exposition dump on you about, you know, about the plot. There's no, like, creative or inventive way to give you the information. They're like, no, we're just going to stop at this shop and Patton Oswalt is going to give you the information. Dan Aykroyd was all right. Dan Aykroyd was there. He was happy to be there. He's excited that they're making Ghostbusters movies. And that's very apparent. He was the most game of the legacy cast. The legacy characters. Bill Murray, holy shit. You can just tell he did not give a shit. He did not care. There is nary a hint of that character in his performance at all. He shows up and says the lines in the most basic, boring, flat way possible. And he's not really given much to do either, and I assume he asked. And then during the finale, like, there's a big finale where, like, all the characters kind of come together and you know, to defeat the bad guy. And I'm not even sure most of them were on the set at the same time, like, because everybody's kind of cordoned off in their own part of the set piece. So you have, like, the legacy characters doing stuff and then, like, with, like, one of the kids. You have the family unit doing stuff, which, like, Paul Rudd, Carrie Coon, and the kids. And then you had Kumail kind of by himself because he does nothing because he's a fucking loser. That's why. But yeah, and you could kind of tell. Shit like that is just so, once you notice things like that, you can't unsee it, and it is so distracting. Because you're starting to see the seams I know that there was definitely a lot done to this movie in post-production. I have a feeling they gutted a lot of the character stuff to kind of get the runtime down. Because it's under 2 hours, which I was appreciative. Like, it goes by pretty quickly, for the most part. I mean, maybe it drags a little bit. Like, for the first hour kind of drags, because it's just kind of boring. And like I said, you're not getting enough with the characters to really feel any sense of attachment or investment. They do it with the one girl who's like, you know, the new Egon, essentially. She gets the most, but even she kind of gets short shrift. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think after the fact, they changed some things about her character and what's going on. Like, she, like, befriends Moaning Myrtle. She befriends, like, a ghost girl that is part of the plot. I won't get into it too much, but they clearly are, she's so clearly supposed to be, like, romantically interested in this ghost. It's very clear what that, it's like, you know, what the coding is for that, you know. Back in the old days, it would have been like a little girl, and it would have been like a boy, a teenage boy. It would have been Casper, that was trying to kind of, you know, warm up to her for his own kind of gain. But that is clearly there, but they cut a lot of it out, and you can tell. You can tell they cut a lot of it out. Probably just because they were like, no, we were more interested in selling movie tickets than kind of pandering to this. Because it's like, well, I feel like you guys just didn't want to commit to it. You did not want to commit to the lesbian teenage girl, which, you know, I'm sure is to the great chagrin of all of the, you know, 30-year-old, single, childless horror movie bloggers out there. You know, they're going to have to pass up on this teenage thirst trap. They tried to pressure a girl to code herself as lesbian because of the way she looks. Like, really nice people. Really cool people to do that to a teenage girl. But, but yeah. I don't know. I feel kind of indifferent about it. Like, it's not a good movie, but it's also not the worst thing I've ever seen. It kind of just happened in front of me. And it's just not good. It's just mediocre. And that's worse. I would rather it be like a train wreck. If it was a train wreck, at least, like, there's something to kind of really dive into and talk about. Or if it was really great, there would be things to kind of remark on. And it's just not. It's just not. It's a very kind of, it's like dead on arrival. The movie has no sense of kind of like tension or pace or escalation, I noticed. It feels like a pilot. Like if Max or something was making a Ghostbusters series. Like, this feels like it would be a pilot to that series. It has a very TV show kind of feel to it. And that's, you know, and that's something that is very common these days with a lot of these franchise movies, because they're kind of going for lowest common denominator, and they kind of want to make them as broad and as accessible to a global audience as possible. So they kind of just take all the personality out of stuff, and they make it just kind of flat and presentable. Like, so anywhere you are in the world, you'll kind of recognize this style. You'll be accustomed to it. It won't be jarring because of like the choices of a director that's a little bit more cinematic or something, right? And it's just, I don't know. It's also an ugly mess too. And yeah, just really wasn't feeling it. Wasn't feeling it. And it's, you know, it's one of those things, Ghostbusters, like I said earlier, like it should be kind of, should almost like write itself. The fact that it can be a franchise. Like, it's the roadmap is right there. In fact, Ghostbusters should be like a TV show. Honestly, it should be a TV show. You have like your Ghost of the Week, and then you have your kind of your big overarching villain for the season. Like, you could totally see that. I don't think they're going to do that. Maybe they will. I don't know. But yeah. It should be. It should be that. But I guess I kind of lost my train of thought there. Where was I going with that? Oh, it's just like it just should not have been franchised. Like, in hindsight, I know it's easy to say, but like just what we've gotten from it, I wish we had left well enough alone. You know, when they were refusing to do it back in the 90s, well, at least Bill Murray was. Bill Murray is the person that held this up for years. That's why there never was a sequel in the 90s. They were supposed to do the torch passing movie in the late 90s. That was the plan. And Bill Murray was like, nobody wants to see a bunch of old farts running around with proton packs, you know, shooting at ghosts. And, well, I guess, you know, that money must have been very attractive. Or maybe he's just older now. Maybe a little bit more wistful about the past. Kind of just wants to make people happy in a more kind of, going the easiest route, right? Just give them more. They just want more Ghostbusters. Give them more Ghostbusters. Give them more of that Ghostbusters. These old farts and the Ghostbusting. You know how it is. They're great. The Ghostbusters. Well, yeah, maybe Donald Trump. They should bring Donald Trump. Should make a cameo. And whatever the next Ghostbusters movie is, I hope they include Donald Trump. You know, he's a staple of New York City. Maybe when he dies, so finally, then they can incorporate him and he can like haunt Trump Tower. That's where that's where the next Ghostbusters family style sequel is going to be. But yeah, you know, it's also kind of, you know, I haven't remarked on the humor at all. It's not very funny. It's not a very funny movie. It doesn't try to be that funny. It definitely leans more into kind of the adventure movie side of Ghostbusters, but it gets the balance wrong, you know? The first movie is kind of like catching lightning in a bottle. I don't know if it's like really, truly replicatable. I mean, just the chemistry of the cast, the concept, the way it was made, the time it was made too, the style of movie it is. I don't know if you could really do that anymore. I don't know. Even though, like I have said, I think the concept is very rich to kind of serialize and just kind of... I don't understand why there's just not a bunch of funny Ghostbusters sequels, honestly. And I think it's largely nowadays, the 2016 was just a misfire because Paul Feig was the wrong person to direct that movie. Even if you had kept the cast the same, I think you would have just gotten a better movie with a different director. And then the new ones, I'm just kind of at a loss for who they're for. Because they're for like people my age and older to take our kids to. So that they, because now they're actually like kind of suggesting the kids should have nostalgia for Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's just weird. It's just weird. I can't get into it. I refuse. But anyways, those are my kind of off-the-cuff random thoughts about it. But thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about ZooBox, a bunch of links in the description, or there will be at some point. And I hope you guys have the best day ever. Adios.